Hello there, kia ora. Ding dong, the bill is gone. Yesterday was a fascinating one to sit down and watch. David Seymour live tweeted the whole thing with, "Why are people saying mean things about my bill and me when clearly I'm the only one who is right here?" The opposition parties pointed out that this was a waste of time, money, effort, and burned our social cohesion like one of those old-timey cartoon bombs with the little fuses. The National and New Zealand First MPs who spoke, because their leaders weren't there, tried to claim the opposition were using the bill for political point scoring because everyone knew the outcome from the parties who promised to keep the first home buyers grant, add a new tax for apps, promise money in the budget for expanded mental health services to properly fund our health and police and education sectors, and to fund a range of cancer meds in their first budget. So sure, they seem trustworthy. They also tried to pitch that all of their changes that directly impact Māori outcomes, like removing Section 7AA from the Oranga Tamariki Act, getting rid of the Māori Health Authority, forcing councils to hold expensive referenda on Māori wards, New Zealand First plan to remove 28 general treaty clauses from legislation, even changing the names of government departments to English First, which were designed to help those who needed the most help and to be good treaty partners, were actually their way to help Māori because they clearly ceded sovereignty, as Paul Goldsmith said. There was a lot of passion and emotion from those opposing. Hana Rafiti Maipi Clark was on the verge of tears presenting her speech, highlighting a loss of a number of rangatira who had passed during the fight against the bill. There was mention of submissions, which came in from 6% of the population, not 1% like a certain David Seymour was claiming. The largest protest hikoi in the history of the country, the social media campaigns, and the huge select committee response. And Willie Jackson was kicked out for calling Seymour a liar, and a few warnings were given over mentioning the absence of luxon, which is against parliamentary rules. It was also pointed out a number of times that all of this, the $6 million spent on the process, was all down to the Prime Minister allowing it to happen, no matter how much the coalition said it was just how MMP works. But the fact is, Seymour said afterwards it wasn't a bottom line. Luxon said it was presented as a bottom line, which means one of them is lying, which means it's down to the Prime Minister to take responsibility for allowing it to proceed because, well, he was either duped or complicit, and he doesn't care. He said so on Mike Hosking's show. So what happens now? Well, this version of the bill itself is dead and buried, relegated to the history books, but in media stand-ups afterwards, when Seymour bolted as Tūtera Maina Iwi rang around Parliament, he did say that the bill would be back. Like a zombie apocalypse written by Uwe Boll. But there's likely to be a few possible things happen going forward. On the small end of the scale, we can expect to start getting some gaslighting from National and New Zealand First MPs about how they are responsible for killing the bill, especially in front of Māori audiences. And they'll use their line that it was all because of the coalition. In front of more right-leaning audiences, you can expect different language, like when they tell voters that they're against co-governance because they believe in one person, one vote, but won't do anything about getting rid of those people who get to vote twice in local elections because they own properties. There's also a chance that if National and ACT need to renegotiate an agreement for a second term, that it will be reintroduced, and if that's the case, it will very likely be a bottom line this time, especially if New Zealand First isn't needed. There's also a very high possibility that Hobson's pledge will start the process for a citizens-initiated referendum. But this is a complicated process. It requires at least 410,000 signatures from registered voters, which is the number of people who live in Christchurch. Those signatures need to be presented to the Clerk of the House, who then works with officials on the exact wording of the referendum question. The whole process takes about a year, so that'll be starting really soon. And based on the cost of the last referendums, the end-of-life referendum and the marijuana legalization bill, we're looking at a cost of around $25 to $30 million footed by the taxpayer. And there is a few ways that the public can still push back. Call out any government member who tries to take credit, especially if they are caught code switching between audiences. Keep pushing back on other changes, like the Regulatory Standards Bill, along with other legislative changes that the Coalition were crowing about today that will result in more inequitable outcomes for Māori. If you come across something or someone wanting you to sign a petition for the referendum, either don't sign it or put down some false details. because if there's enough false details within that form, it doesn't count and won't go forward. And make sure that you vote. Right? Vote in this year's local body elections, especially if you have a referendum on Māori wards being forced on you, to send another clear message about how you feel. And next year, make sure you and those around you vote, because if there's a referendum on this at the time, there's going to be so many resources from astroturfing groups with big wallets and tiny amounts of empathy doing what they can to focus the vote to go the way that they want it to. The results of that election will dictate if we see this sort of bullshit again anytime this decade. So it's so important to remember what got us to today and what happened and how it made you feel.
Ding dong, the bill is gone. It's time in the House. Didn't last too long. The treaty principles bill is history, left behind as a legislative mystery. David Seymour looks so sad. The racists too are feeling bad, but their hatred won't gain traction here. We'll stand united, make it clear. No room for their racist tale. We'll make sure their attempts fail. Together we'll fight, we won't retreat. Racism will never claim defeat. David Seymour looks so sad. The racists too are feeling bad, but their hatred won't gain traction here. We'll stand united, make it clear. No room for the racist tale. We'll make sure their attempts fail. Together we'll fight, we won't retreat. Racism will never claim defeat.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And hopefully I can find a way out of this building.